Hello and welcome everyone to the digital event Beyond 2020 Global Youth Voices and Futures. My name is Aminata Belli and I'm very happy to be hosting today's summit organized by ViacomCBS and EU40 in partnership with Your Active. Today we will take a look at 2020 and its impact on young people and their future. To find out, ViacomCBS has undertaken a new research project Beyond 2020, involving over 8,000 16 to 24 years old in 15 countries. A panel of speakers, including Eva Kaili, Anna Masiello, Virginius Sinkevicius, and Christian Kutz, will discuss what needs to be done. But before we start talking, let us take a look at the following video to get a better idea of what this is all about.
2020. It's been a challenging year, from the ongoing global pandemic to police brutality and systemic racism sparking protests in cities around the world, to disasters caused by climate change and activism around the environment. This year has brought a huge amount of change, disruption and uncertainty on a truly global scale. At this pivotal moment in history, we wanted to check in with young people aged between 16 and 24. We did this through a global survey across 15 countries, together with remote video interviews with young people around the world.
Ciao a tutti, mi chiamo Rossella, ho 19 anni.
My name is Tyler.
Sono Mattia.
My name is Chelsea.
My name is Calum.
How has this period of change and uncertainty affected youth? What are their hopes and dreams for the future? And how are the events of today shaping young people's plans, beliefs and attitudes for tomorrow, beyond 2020? Clearly, the COVID-19 pandemic has played a huge role in the disruption of 2020.
I think it's kind of been the most challenging year ever.
Ik vind het wel een heftig jaar, als je het gebeurt.
Coronavirus has been the biggest event by far just because it stopped everything in its tracks. And then I think that event led us to re-examine a lot of other issues that we're dealing with as a society in the world right now.
The pandemic has changed lives, but for some, it also offered a rare chance to reflect and reassess.
Nessa quarentena, a nossa cabeça fica mil, a nossa mente fica mil. E aí o que você mais quer, às vezes, é ir para uma cachoeira, ou ir para uma praia, ou viajar para outros lugares, respirar pouco, e aí não pode.
2020 just made me look at myself and just really do the work on myself to when I come out here and just be a better person, for me, not for anybody else, but just for me and focus on me and actually slow down.
Proprio come nazione, come cittadino, in primis io voglio cercare di cambiare, quindi speranza in senso positivo.
Following the murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery and many others, the Black Lives Matter and anti-racism movements have had a huge impact, and not just in the United States, but around the world.
I feel like the Black Lives Matter movement is really, really important. I really do hope that it creates change, even in Australia, for indigenous rights as well. There are so many deaths in custody.
Minha participação nesse movimento, ela se limitou ao online. Eu me posicionei bastante em conversas, em redes sociais, mas não tanto no presencial.
I mean, I've always been, I feel like, part of it, but I feel like I never knew how to actively contribute as much as I wanted to.
I do a lot of social media activism, trying to spread the word, petitions. That for me has been the biggest part of my year, and it's been really inspiring to see everyone kind of coming together over it.
And globally, other events, including climate change protests, natural disasters and political turmoil, have taken their toll too.
So I definitely feel passionate about the climate change issue. I feel a lot of anger towards our government in terms of how little they've been doing in the past and how little they're doing at the moment.
Quindi dobbiamo cominciare a cambiare effettivamente qualcosa, perché sennò poi davvero ci ritroveremo in una situazione, secondo me, che poi non sarà più tanto ma poi faremo, sarà troppo tardi poi, e noi dobbiamo evitare all'arrivare a una situazione simile.
The biggest thing is just politics everywhere. I've heard it now more than I ever have in my life.
2020 has clearly been a challenging year, prompting change, reflection and reassessment. But how does this impact youth beyond 2020? Young people know they'll have to work hard to achieve their personal goals and crave stability in an uncertain world. But overall, they remain resilient and confident.
Yeah, I feel like stability is something that we're all kind of searching for right now. I don't know if my life can just fall apart all at once.
Ai, espero estar viajando muito. Espero estar com uma vida financeiramente bem, falando assim. Acho que todo mundo quer, né?
Oh, I'm ready to get on a plane. I'm ready to go travel. I feel trapped. Like it's making me depressed at times. You know, it's making me a little like, I can't do this.
Ja, geestelijk merk ik wel gewoon, vooral de laatste maanden, dat diep gezondheid belangrijker is dan je lichamelijke gezondheid.
I feel like I'm more invested in putting my physical and mental health before anything else now.
Secondo me si è un attimo fermati, si è entrato in contatto su come appunto la nostra salute può da un giorno all'altro essere fragile.
When it comes to wider issues, youth are optimistic for change, but are aware that it won't come easily.
Eu acho que em 10 anos essa questão racial vai ter mudado bastante, principalmente aqui no Brasil. Non un fim do razzismo, ma una grande amenizazione dele.
Sicuramente porterà qualcosa di positivo e a dei cambiamenti, anche se non penso a breve termine, cioè non a breve termine, non penso in un breve periodo, insomma. Cioè penso che ci voglia tanto tempo, come diciamo ci è voluto e sono iniziati insomma tanto tempo fa questi movimenti.
I think that the political issues that we are suffering with and dealing with now, I think we've dealt with them for forever. I'm not sure that there's going to be a major change in what we're dealing with.
I feel like in the next 10 years, we just kind of have to, everyone just needs to get their shit together, honestly. Like, we just have to figure something out.
They have a lot to think about, but despite the unprecedented events of 2020, youth today still believe they have the power to change the world and are excited about the future.
So if I had to describe the future,
dovessi descrivere il futuro,
se tivesse que escrever o futuro,
In 3 words.
In 3 words.
In 3 words.
If I had to describe the future in 3 words, it would be
daunting,
Scary,
Worrying,
política,
mistério,
different,
ambitie,
nuove idee,
accepting,
exciting,
Kansrijk,
Novità,
amor,
loving,
positivo,
freeing,
progressive,
optimistic,
crescita,
sustainable.
caring,
wel divers.
I really love that video. I hope you too, and they should watch this video in 10 years of time again. I also want to welcome the audience. I hope you're having a good day today, and if you're watching via Zoom, you'll be able to participate in our polls. And the first poll question would be, have the events of 2020 made you rethink your plans for the future beyond this year? So you can press yes or no if you know the answer for yourself. And then we will take a look at this afterwards. And then let me introduce the speakers and give a warm welcome to Virginijus Sinkevičius from Lithuania. He's the Commissioner for Environment, Oceans and Fisheries, and by the way, the youngest appointed commissioner ever at the age of 28. How are you today, and what are you looking for in this talk?
Good afternoon, everyone, and of course, first of all, thanks for this invitation. And I'm looking forward for a lively talk where we're going to touch upon not only what happened, but where we're going to go and what we're going to do and what youth can actually do to make sure that mistakes which were done in the past, they're not going to happen. And most importantly, we're going to rebuild a better planet.
Thank you very much for being here, and I'm looking forward to hear more from you. Let me turn to Eva Kaili from Greece, Member of Parliament for the Social and Democrats Party. She is the president of EU40 and considered as a digital champion in the European Parliament. Hello, Eva, what do you expect from today, and how are you today?
Hi, first of all, congratulations for achieving to have this great event with amazing participation online. Is not something we are used to and people are too much connected, but I believe it's a very fresh event and initiative. And what I expect is for us to have a very vivid discussion and see how we have actually learned from this pandemic, how we should change our plans for the future and make sure that nobody will be left behind, especially the younger generation that now sees we are under lockdown for a year and there is another tough year ahead of us. So it's not very easy if you haven't established your professional life and your personal life to be under these uncertain circumstances. So what I expect is to make sure that we will all join forces to identify the main strategies that work and they should become more known among European citizens and the youth, and to see how we can improve our strategy also for the future, taking under consideration the interventions we will have by the participants. And I have to also say that I'm very proud we have not just the youngest commissioner among us, but actually a very active political leader in his country. And I think this is these are the examples that we have to show that Europe gives this space now. It's opening up to a different generation that can have a different approach than the one that maybe made young people lose trust or not understand the strength of this European identity. So I think his efforts are helping us to increase the engagement and make sure that we know that together we can do more things. So thank you for hosting this event, and also EU40 for being a breath of fresh air inside the Parliament with what they organized, and Alessandro and Adam especially. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for being here and the kind words. And yeah, that's what we're here for, to empower youth and to discuss how we can do it even better. And also a warm welcome to Anna Masiello from Italy. She's an environmental activist, entrepreneur, and founder of R-Code, which is very interesting, and Zero Waste Influencer. What are you looking for in today's talk, and how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. I hope you're doing fine too. First of all, I would like to thank you, all the organizers, for this event as well. And I have to say it's an honor, and I'm super excited to be here representing the youth, so no pressure. From this call, I honestly just hope that it represents a starting point for like a real and like a deep conversation between citizens and individuals, young and older, you know, and entities like the EU. So I just hope that it's a real starting point for change.
Perfect. You were looking forward to that. Thank you that you're here. And then a warm welcome to Christian Kurz, Senior Vice President of ViacomCBS. Where are you calling from and how are you today, Christian?
Thanks, Aminata. Hi, everybody. So I'm calling actually from New York in the middle of a snowstorm, which as a born and bred European, it is really, really exciting to be able to talk to you all virtually. So actually the ability to bring people together without being physically together has actually made my life a little bit easier in this context. But what I'm really excited about is to discuss with this great panel what young people around the world are telling us, and to hopefully bring this to the attention of more and more people so that we can actually help them achieve change, as is what we're trying to do.
Perfect. So let us take a look at the first poll results, I would say. Oh, that's quite clear. So 84% of you saying that you have, or you did rethink your plans for the future beyond this year. Christian, how would you, did you be a part, or what would you say? Did you do this too or not? Or what is your take on that?
I think that's a really, really good number, because that is very, very similar to the number that we got when we did do the research with young people. So in the video, you've seen the qualitative work. So you've seen people talk about it. What I'd like to do now is just talk a little bit for a few minutes about the numbers to then get that set up for everybody else, if that's all right.
Perfect.
All right, so hopefully you will now see my screen. And as a very quick introduction to ViacomCBS, you've heard that name a few times now, but we are, of course, a media and entertainment company. We're storytellers. We like to tell stories to the world, and that includes our brands from Nickelodeon for kids, MTV Comedy Central, Paramount, the movie studio, all the way through to our general entertainment channels like CBS in the US, Channel 5 in the UK, Network 10 in Australia, and Telefe in Argentina. So across all age groups, across all audiences, we're trying to engage with consumers. And in order to keep doing that and to keep reflecting the world of audiences, among other things, we've been doing youth research for well over a decade, well before I've joined the company. And Beyond 2020 really is the last outcome or the latest outcome of this research. So 82% of young people, the 16 to 24s, believe that they've had their plans disrupted quite a bit this year, and 80% think or have rethought their plans. So very, very close to the 80% of our audience here today, which I think is very much in line with what we're hearing wherever we go. This has been universal across the world. So these are just some of the countries we talk to and do research with across the world. And not surprisingly, the COVID pandemic, of course, has been the biggest disruptor and the biggest impact, but by far not the only one. So if you look at anti-racist movements, protest against police brutality, that whole complex of topics, that is also very high. That does vary by countries. And then also, of course, natural disasters, climate change, protests, all of those types of things have not gone away this year, despite the fact that we've seen so many other things that could have easily covered up those topics. This is the most depressing slide that I ever present. And really what is, and I still get shivers down my spine, but what's really interesting is that what we have seen in 2020 is that for young people, happiness has plummeted fundamentally. Yes, they're also more stressed, and that's a significant increase, but I'm less worried about that. I'm more worried about the happiness having reduced. And of course, a lot of that has to do with lockdowns and COVID, but I don't think that is really it. Despite all of this stuff that 2020 has thrown at young people, they are continuing to look to the future, and they want to make the most of what comes next. But of course, they do know that that's not going to be an easy path. They know that they have to work very hard to achieve those goals, their goals individually and the goals as society. So with that, I want to throw up another quick poll question, and we'll look at those results at the end of my presentation. Again, something that we asked young people as well, so you'll see how it compares. Do you believe today's youth has the potential to change the world for the better? Those of you on Zoom, please answer the question. Everybody else, you'll get to wait for the results. So despite everything that 2020 threw at people, the environment continues to be the #1 topic for young people, and they feel that that is what society needs to work on. The environment, followed by the economy, followed by gender equality, followed by crime and violence, and then #5, systemic racism. So with everything that's going on, the importance or the priority that young people put on the environment has not gone away and has not changed. And to achieve all of this, of course, youth also expect accountable and diverse leaders. And I think we've got two very great examples on this panel. However, young people think that governments and politicians will be held more accountable for their actions in the next 5 to 10 years. And they also believe that the politicians governing our country will be from a more diverse range of backgrounds than they are today. Here's the however. An equal number of about 3/4 do agree that corruption will still be a problem in their respective country, and just under 2/3 think that nothing much will have changed in politics. So this is really the gauntlet thrown down to politicians of saying, we need to figure out how to fix these things as well, while we're also fixing the country or the world. Young people understand the responsibility for future change lies in their own hands. Over 80% believe that everyone will be expected to educate themselves about social issues, and they also expect to be actively involved in creating that society of equality. And with that, they do believe that they have the power to change the world for the better. So 84% is the number to beat. So let's see what the poll results have to say. 87, again, very, very close. So with that, thank you so much for your time and attention for these few slides. And we'll go back to Aminata to start the Q&A.
Thank you, Christian, very much for your presentation. And to the audience, you may now ask your questions to the speakers, and I will start with mine. Starting with Virginius, as the youngest commissioner ever, how do you think young people can be involved in the political discourse? Do you think young people are involved enough?
I would say, first of all, of course, we have a situation where young people, if you look at around the table, they are not involved enough, and definitely there can be done more. We need young people more than ever. We need innovators, out-of-the-box thinkers, people who are passionate and energetic, and people who are deeply motivated to make this world a safer, a healthier place, especially in the situation we find ourselves right now. And I don't really buy into the cliche that young people are future leaders. I think they are already leaders today, and they need and deserve a place at the table. But there is a serious problem, of course, for young voices. They are the most vocal participants in debates. They are most hungry for change, but politically they are underrepresented, and for a basic reason: the shape of Europe's demographics. It's hard to be here when your generation is severely outnumbered. And at the Commission, we know the problem, and we are looking for solutions, trying to find ways to increase youth involvement in politics, in our policies. Young people power of persuasion has never been in doubt, and that's what you need to maximize. Politics, first of all, is about winning people over and here, and there is a job to do. And if you aren't being heard, you need to shout louder. You need to make sure you are getting noticed. So we are doing our best, but we need to keep banging on the door as well. And of course, doing it united also works.
How exactly are you doing this? Or how is the European Commission involving young people in the work of the Commission?
So we have a plenty, of course, first of all, programs of empowering young people, of giving them necessary skills, reskilling, and etc. I'm glad that we provide an opportunities for young people to travel. I think Erasmus program is basically one of the most successful programs that the union basically has, and it's been charming. It's been so much broadening the horizons of the young people. But most importantly, I think here is assurance that young people are well presented. I'm very happy to see Eva here and see actually that the Parliament, the MEPs, are getting actually younger, and that also means that there is a trust of generations in young people and empowering them. And of course, I think the young people has to seize those opportunities. Change is not going to happen if you sit at home. I always give the best example of Future's Fridays for Future. The Green Deal is the pure result of their determination, them being on the streets every Friday all around the world. And this is the best example, because if you look in the past, yes, there were always talks about the need to do more for climate and so on, but it never happened. It never materialized as much as it's being done right now. Of course, we still have a long way to go, and the young people will have a key role to play in ensuring that those promises are kept, that those plans up to 2050, 2030, they are implemented. And young people, of course, they will have a role to play in implementation of that. But this is a great example. If you need a motivation, if you think that you can't be a change, look at the Fridays for Future. They are the best example of the result being done, the result which changes the world. It's not that you basically acting on small scale level.
What do you think, why are especially young people and the Fridays for Future so powerful? Why was it the young people that led the youth to act faster than they did before?
I would say two main things. First of all, of course, their determination and consistency. And secondly, of course, very clear message. They didn't, spill the messages around. They were very clear of what has to be achieved. And most importantly, that message was backed by science. So that there is another argument. And finally, of course, it became massive, more and more people joined. But at the beginning, I would say that, it was determination to be there every Friday. And secondly, of course, it's clear message.
And one more last question. US President Biden has stated his commitment to action. Do you think this means that progress worldwide is likely?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We need the United States on board. And I'm very proud that EU a year ago was sort of alone sitting at the table of climate change. And we received lots of criticism saying, look, what's going on around the world, and you basically trying to drive our economies to full decarbonization on your own, that can have a very severe consequences. Even so, I never buy this argument, because I think the severe consequences will happen if we won't stop climate change. But nevertheless, 1 year in this journey, we find changes in the United States with the clear determination of not only returning to Paris Agreement, but actually leading the change. We find also China with slightly lower ambition, yes, up to 2060, but still there at the table. New Zealand, Australia, United Kingdom, and of course it's just a few that I mentioned. But the change is happening, and it's happening not only in Europe. And of course, for that change to happen, we need United States, like all the others as well. And that's why I think the best way is to lead by example. Everything what we do here, we should be bold with our ambition. We should be showing the example of implementation. And if others will see that it works, if we are able to decouple our economic growth from resource extraction, and show that it creates actually jobs that are sustainable, that are more resilient to shocks like the one we living through now, or any other future shocks. That's the recipe for being leaders in the world and leading by example and getting others by the table.
Thank you very much. I'll get back to you later. I would turn to Eva now. Eva, as a former TV presenter, what do you think the media's role should be involving young people and giving them a greater voice, after we've just been talking about young people that need to be heard? What about the role of digital?
So in this case, Aminata, you are the expert actually. But I have to say that I had the sort of experience as a newscaster, and I learned the power of social media to connect with the youngest people, that they cannot find easy ways to collaborate with politicians or to feel that they are being heard. So this helped me a lot, and I still use it because it actually makes me feel that I remain relevant to the dialogue that takes place on social media, and not the bubble that we have created in the institutions, believing that everything is turning around us. So I would say that what we're trying to do is bridge this bubble to the youth, and there is a youth strategy that's going to be implemented for the next 7 years, with several initiatives and events from the European Parliament and the Commission to try to empower the youth, to make sure we will develop together a strategy for the future and fine-tune whatever we have already been developing. And one of the best ways to do so, besides like having events like yours with your amazing initiatives and leaders and activists of the youngest generation, that it's already engaged is to engage even more people. So you know that every 2 years we have the I event, which takes place in Strasbourg. It's actually an amazing opportunity. Almost 10,000 people would have been there at the last event, but due to the pandemic, it had to be postponed. But still, since I have participated once, it's an amazing environment where you see how many things we have in common coming from different countries, and how many we can achieve together actually when we discuss about amazing things. Like we were discussing with the youngest people and experts about quantum policy and strategy, and I was like learning in each event I was participating under the eye. So there are several ways that we can approach, understand, and listen to the community of the youngest Europeans.
And we want to listen and empower, but still the study revealed that COVID-19 was the most disruptive for youth in 2020. As a politician, how can you make sure that young people are the core of the recovery?
Well, already, I think if you see the priorities of Europe, they changed. And instead of focusing into the traditional sectors that we used of the economy, everything now goes through the prism of green and digital. And the target and the vision is to make sure that all the business models will adapt to what the future shows they will need, so that they are resilient. So this means we need to understand innovation, and we have already started and launched digital hubs, innovation hubs. And this means that each member state will try to create and empower an ecosystem of the ones that understand the potential of new technologies. There is a strategy also for digital skills. This means we try to make sure that they will have access for free to Wi-Fi, to acquiring digital skills, and to be able to approach through this ecosystem the European community of innovation, and be able to release this dynamic that they have with their ideas, and the way they see that the future will need them to solve problems. So if we manage to have like the first results, I think we will manage also to stop this wave of brain drain outside Europe. So the best, most innovative people and startups, they leave Europe. And I think we will have to bring them back, or to keep them here, remove the frictions among the member states, and make sure we will empower them to stay and be creative here. I think we have already done, we have moved forward by developing this strategy. And I think when you see everything coming up together like these hubs, and also the European funding for startups and scale-ups, we will manage also to see the results of what we've been planning.
And last one, talking about the results, the EU declared a climate emergency in November 2019. And what does this mean, and what actions has the EU or the European Parliament taken since?
Can you repeat that, because I missed the first part?
Yeah, the European Parliament declared a climate emergency in November 2019. And what does this mean, and what actions has the European Parliament taken since?
So what we try to do is to have the strategy that would follow, of course, the Paris Agreement, but we try to make sure we will have steps that we will measure that we were actually effective, and not to wait and see what happens in 30 years. So we have taken steps not only to develop a strategy, but also to put money where we saw that we want to have more ambitious. So we have now more specific targets. And as I said, everything goes through the prism of going green, which basically means to have a different way of thinking. Sustainability would be part of any project and any approach that we will develop. Still, this means we need to understand that the business models have to change. They have to become resilient, and they have to respect the environment. And this means we have to rethink any business model, the traditional ones, and make sure they will change rapidly, and we will support their change. Because sometimes to leave a successful model and switch to a more sustainable one doesn't happen unless somebody forces you to do so, or somebody takes the risk or takes the investment to do so. And this is what we're planning, and this is actually how we managed to increase the targets for Europe per member state. So for example, one of the fights we won was that we didn't want to have one common target for Europe. We wanted each member state to follow the same target, because this would mean that like some member states are ahead and some member states would benefit and stay at the back seat. Now we all have to be in the same speed. We have to catch these targets to go green. We already have an amazing program. I don't know if you know that, but it's science, technology, and arts. So it's called STARTS from the Commission. It's awesome. So you have new designers, artists, and scientists coming together using new technologies to develop great projects, new materials. Like there is an exhibition in Berlin in June, where you can see fibers that are used in materials and clothes that we wear. And they change with the temperature. So for example, if you have a little baby and you want to make sure that it will not get a fever without you noticing, what the baby is wearing could change from white to red. So
wow.
alerts the mother that something is wrong. And we have a project for water sustainability that we try to make sure that artists will work hard to raise awareness and make sure we will use it in our ports and close to the sea, in order to not just raise awareness, but actually find technical solutions that will not be annoying to be in the environment, but they will fit and they will create a different, let's say, approach on how we deal with technology. It's a great initiative. It's becoming bigger and bigger, and I think it's something that I'm very proud that Europe has achieved.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. Let me turn to Anna now. I'll get back to you later. Anna, as a young European activist, what was your personal experience of 2020?
Well, it's been challenging, just like for everyone else. I think that 2019 was such a good year, a strong year for climate action and climate strikes, that not being able to meet physically with the people around me and with the community and organize and ask for change has been probably the hardest part, having to stay at home and wanting to do more and wanting to ask for more change, but just, I could just use my phone. That was very, very frustrating. At the same time, I would say that 2020 was, for me personally, a year in which I unlearn and relearn so many topics, especially thanks to the super powerful voices of the Black Lives Matter movement. I switched finally from an activism that was focused on the environment to an activism that is more intersectional. So I put now at the center of my activism the planet, but also the people, and especially marginalized groups. And I think that this was the main change for me. So I would say that 2020 was a frustrating year, but also a year of change and self-improvement.
Yeah, this is very true for me too. It's a lot of frustration, but also a lot of learnings. And that leads me to a question for all of you. What changes did you make to your lifestyle during the pandemic, and will you stick to them after the pandemic?
Should I start?
Yeah, you can start.
Well, I've been trying to change a lot of habits since a few years back already. So I don't know exactly what I changed exactly during the pandemic, but I would say that I slowed down a lot, and I really worked on my mental health and just, on having more energy so that I could also be more active. I think it's super important. Also, of course, I learned how to make sourdough bread like everyone else. And I would say that one of the very big things that I did at the end of 2020 was to learn where the banks invest our money. So after I learned that most of the banks invest all our money into sectors like fossil fuels, weapons, military, all sectors that you wouldn't support directly with your money. I was like, wait a second. So I searched for solutions, and there are ethical banks out there that align better with our values. So I would say that this is some of the main things that I did.
That's a good thing. That's inspiring. Virginius, what changes did you make to your lifestyle during the pandemic, and will you stick to them? Will you tell us?
I would say, I wouldn't say that I had dramatic changes I made. Probably I would say I was forced into those changes, like many of us. And the major one, of course, and it's a good one. I want to keep it on the positive side, that I spent much more time at home with my family, as I have still quite little kids, so it's a joy to spend more time with them rather than flying and joining different events and etc. I did it, of course, online. And that really made me rethink and think quite a lot of the management, of the cabinet work, of how we must really adapt to the current reality. Of course, I've kept quite a lot in close contact with my cabinet, so how they feel about it, how they put their agenda, how they schedule it, and so on. Because at the beginning, I think people a little bit underestimated all of this sort of lockdown and working from home. Everyone sort of thought about it as fun, but when it became a routine, lots of people really needed to look for some fresh solutions, and I kept on reading of different articles of how to really do it, and how to work with people on that psychological part, how to help them, how to schedule their work, because you can have meetings every basically hour without a break, because you don't have to go from one place to another, and etc. So that really, I think, broadened my horizon of managing people, working from home, but in the end of the day being result driven. But of course, turning into that psychological part as well. And as I said, the positive part, that I spent much more time at home in 2020 than I remember since I entered politics for 5 years that I did.
This I believe for sure. How about you, Eva? And thanks for sharing with us.
Well, actually, I think I changed many things. First of all, I'm staying in Greece. I work from home. I think this improved the quality of our lives in any case, not just because we're spending time with our family, but also I've stopped like the airplane food, which is important, trust me. You have 2 days per week to eat on a plane and not have time to read or to understand what's happening, but you just have to constantly work and travel. So it's like a pause that I'm taking advantage of to read more. I followed some online courses, so I'm realizing the potential of the new technologies in education. And I think that's why we need to focus more and provide these tools and make sure that these are the changes that we will keep also post-pandemic, and we will take advantage of. And I talked about digital skills, but at the same time, I found ways to make new proposals for the Commission, new initiatives that I saw could actually improve the engagement of young people with Europe. And I think this is the most important thing for me, and I will keep doing that. At the same time, I'm working on all these files for the digital agenda. Because I spend more time to be able to observe what's wrong with targeted advertisement, with not understanding how to use our data, with the lack of access to data in Europe, with this big tech war that takes place globally, and how Europe is ensuring your right to privacy. You've all been, I think, concerned with the tracking applications because of the pandemic. And I think people are concerned that this could become like a surveillance tool for the future. We've seen this happening, not just on Black Mirror of Netflix, but in China too, and like other countries. So trying to make sure that this pandemic will leave us with the benefits of understanding what's important, and make sure it will not disrupt us or change our lives to this Black Mirror scenario. I think this was the most important thing, and I'm already learning more things that Europe has been working on, like the Erasmus and how we managed to support it and expand it even more, and how we saw that Brexit disrupted the life in UK, and why this gave us a new realization of how we should improve Europe to make sure there would not be another Brexit in our family. So things like that. I think for everybody, it had its good and bad things. I mean, we miss being in the same room, the physical presence of like friends and discussing behind the scenes and exchanging views. I think this is irreplaceable. But pausing a bit, as for travel too much, I think it was also important.
It's true. Well, I'm just happy that we have the opportunity to talk through our laptops or phones, and I'm happy that we're doing this today too. And if I have a new question or another question to Anna, talking about inspiring and changing lifestyles, tell us a bit about your lifestyle, Anna, and what are you doing to inspire other young people?
I would say that my lifestyle started changing in 2017. Yeah, when I heard about the zero waste lifestyle for the very first time, and for me it was like an instant click that this, like reducing my personal waste, was a quite effective way to reduce my impact on the environment. And at that time, I created my Instagram account that's called Hero to Zero. That was a way to document my journey and also invite people to join me in this process. Since then, I kept learning, which is super important, of course, and I was aiming to improve every day. And I reduced animal products by a lot. I stopped buying fast fashion, and now I'm probably the biggest fan of secondhand and swap events. I started dumpster diving outside of supermarkets to reduce waste, food waste more or less, but mainly as a way to create content about it and raise awareness about this huge problem. I switched to an ethical bank, like I said. So it's a lot of tiny things that we can do to have a life that is more aligned with our values. But what I would like to share, and I think that it's probably one of the most important things that I learned during 2020, and I wish that more people were more aware of this, is that it's really not fair for individuals to feel so much pressure that we have to be perfect and have like zero impact on the planet. Like in the beginning of my journey, I suffered from eco-anxiety. I even had panic attacks because I felt so much responsibility, on my own shoulders. But I think that with power comes responsibility, and clearly entities like the EU or big businesses have more power than I do. So I hope to see in the future, in the present, so from tomorrow, that these big entities take more responsibility out of our shoulder and stop pushing a lot on our environmental footprint,
Very, very important. Another question for Christian. What was the most striking element of this study for you personally?
That's a good question. I think to me, the most striking piece was how strong and how important the environment continues to be in young people's minds, even when there's so many other things that on their own have the potential to really overshadow everything else, right? We've had obviously a massive health crisis, a massive economic crisis as part of that. We've had Black Lives Matter, all of those racial tensions brought to the forefront. And in a normal year, any one of those would have encapsulated the conversation fundamentally. And then come 2020 and you have all of that, but because of the school strike essentially, and the fact that that garnered such public attention in late 2019, I think really a lot of credit goes to that for continuing to keep the environment at top of mind, despite the fact that we're all dealing with a whole lot of other stuff that's happening in here. And I just also want to say, I really love what Anna was just saying about we can't put all of this pressure, no individual can put any of this pressure on themselves. It has to be the collectivity that works on this. And that's why I think conversations like these are so incredibly powerful to further the dialogue really, and to try and bring I mean, essentially, we really want to solve all of these things. There's no way you can, or at least in short notice. So therefore, it's about incremental change and figuring out what's the next step? What is the tomorrow? What can I do tomorrow? And what can we do together to make the day after tomorrow even better than tomorrow?
And I asked the other participants if they have changed their lifestyle during the pandemic year. And I wanted to ask you if you have changed your lifestyle after working on the survey.
Oh, after working on the survey? Not really, simply because my job is listening. So we're always listening. And I keep saying this to some of the people internally, is when the question is, what's counterintuitive? It's like, well, if everything was a surprise, then I wouldn't have been doing my job for the last 5 years. So it truly is about listening to audiences. We listen to kids, we listen to young people, we listen to real grown-ups. And really this has turned into an evolution. Therefore, I haven't changed anything as a result of this. However, as a result of the study or the year overall, I'm with Eva. I do not miss airplane food, but I do miss the ability to be in different places, which just isn't right there. And that makes the listening much harder. So doing this project completely virtual, which we haven't done before. Like normally we would go into people's homes, spend a day with them, film them, basically live with them and have conversations. That is not possible right now. And relearning how to listen to people, clearly consumers, but also internally when you're managing teams, you need to listen for different cues to figure out how people are feeling and how they're doing. And I think that's a relearning that certainly happened for me this year.
I don't want to miss the questions by the audience because I know, of course, you want to have your questions answered. That's why I would get to the questions we got in here. There is a question from Shudi, I hope I pronounce it right. For Eva, how can we inspire young people, especially those who don't aspire to be politically active, to participate in social change?
Well, thank you for that. I have to make a comment because I heard Christian and Anna, and I have to say, actually, with this pandemic, we all realize that global challenges will affect us all, and there are no barriers, actually. And the same goes with digital. So in order to make sure that we listen to the young people and we engage the ones that they feel that they don't trust the system, or they are in this wave where their passion doesn't allow them to compromise because they want to see a change, they feel that the future is quite uncertain, how we can approach them. I think the way to do so is listen, and Christian is doing that a lot. So I would love to have some feedback on things we can improve from all of you, actually. So I try to listen more, and also I try to talk about what I believe it's their concern. So for example, a friend of mine told me his daughter was telling him, Dad, when I grow up, I want to become an influencer or a YouTuber. So these are like future jobs that you don't know how to prepare young people for. So what we have to make sure is that we're going to ensure that they will have the skills, the digital skills to retrain themselves, to be able to understand how things are changing, and to make sure we will have like free courses online. We will support their creativity and their innovation and their problem solving mentality. I think if we show them we understand and we're trying to deal with these uncertainties, and we try to provide them with the right tools for them to make their own decisions, so give them more options, I think this is the best way to go. And of course, we should stop thinking or believing we know everything. We have to start being out there. Social media could be one way to do so. Events like yours and surveys and studies like yours would help us a lot to understand what the priorities now for the younger generation. Because I believe also the way identities change, and they have changed, is something that we also have to realize to address them, and how people feel they need to have a strong identity that they are proud of. And it's not one, it's different identities, but we need to respect and empower these identities with all possible ways, instead of focusing into how we're going to save the banks, how we're gonna not take the responsibility for what goes wrong in Europe. So we have to show them that we care, they can trust again politics, and we can start engaging and bridging this gap we have more.
Okay, thank you very much on that. We need to wrap up because the time is almost over, but we still have some questions. I'm very sorry for the time. This is running so fast, but it's very, very interesting. One short question, I would say. We can do one more, okay? For the commissioner, one more from Andres. Question: how can we effectively mainstream youth issues and priorities into other relevant policy areas? I read that out like crazy. How can we effectively mainstream youth issues and prioritize into other relevant policy areas? To the commissioner?
Okay, good. Thank you. I have an issues with my connection, and I keep reconnecting. So thank you that you said that it's for me this question. So first of all, I think of course young people can be involved, and they have a possibility to be involved. But unfortunately, we see what's clear that they are not present enough. And there are problems at different levels. There is a real difficulty of access. I'm always happy to meet young people, but it's not always easy for them to get through to the Commission or to find the right person to speak to. So the Commission is a very transparent organization. We never do anything important without impact assessment at several stages of the process. But we can improve our work by ensuring that these impact assessments always involve all right groups of people. And of course, funding is as well another problem. Isn't easy for groups of young people to get organized, and we recognize that there is a funding gap there. And there are schemes like the European Solidarity Corps, which can provide funding for local youth projects up to 500 euros a month. That's not much still, but still something. And I think there are always, of course, more ways to involve young people, and we are working to boost our efforts further. I myself trying to constantly organize citizens dialogues in different EU member states to engage with the young people, to get them involved, to see that there is not such a big gap between us, and they can be actually closed. Their question can get through and can get answered. But as I said, of course, it very also depends on the person at this moment on the other side of the screen, how much he wants to involve. So our legislation is always open, the impact assessment, opinions, and so on. And I always invite the young people to get involved as much as possible. And secondly, of course, look for the funding opportunities, which are going to be there even more, especially speaking about the Green Deal and digitalization initiatives, where I think young people are much sharper and know things much better with the Green Deal, with the Next Generation EU, with the new funding opportunities in member states. We will be looking for those most innovative ideas to fund.
Thank you very much on that, and thank you everyone for being a part of this, that we're all engaging with the youth. Very, very interesting. Thank you for this inspiring, interesting, and informative talk today. Thanks to the audience, the speakers, and you may also follow them on their socials. If so, you see all the information somewhere here. Thank you very much. Stay healthy and have a wonderful day, everyone.